Okay, welcome back, guys. This is Eric, and this is actually the start of what I'm hoping to be is a new series called Answering Viewer Questions. Actually, I don't have an official name for it, but it's going to be something along those lines: Answering Viewer Questions. Ask I am Rosen. I posted a video a few weeks ago, maybe already a month ago, of how to send me your questions because I just get questions all the time. And I made a video just explaining, okay, how to annotate and send a Lichess study. And since then, I've been getting just a ton of responses from people sending all types of questions in terms of their own games, openings, also just general questions like how to get better at chess. So with each video in this series, I don't know how often I'm going to upload videos, but I'm going to try and answer like one viewer question extensively and just try and bring value to everyone. So the first video, I'm going to focus on a question asked by a Lichess user by the name of Sigmav, and he was asking about a Carlsen game and asking if I can explain why Carlsen played a6 on move 3 in the Queen's Gambit declined. After d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, Carlsen played a6, which is perhaps not such a theoretical move, but it is a more trendy move these days. Now, I should mention the Carlsen game was a blitz game. He was playing against Grandmaster Predrag Nikolic, and Carlsen just won in 22 moves. He made it seem like a piece of cake, and his opponent is 2500 level Grandmaster. So at first, when you look at a6, it just seems like a complete waste of time. I mean, usually in the opening, you should be developing your minor pieces, controlling the center, and in this case, Carlsen just moves the a pawn up one square. But this is a type of move, the more you look into it, the more you realize it actually has a clear purpose. The main idea is to eventually capture on c4 and play b5. And as we'll see in this game, this is exactly what Carlsen does, and he gets a very pleasant position with expanding on the queen side and playing bishop b7. So one main line is, let's say white plays a move like knight c3. Then black is actually ready to take on c4 and hold on to the pawn. After d takes c4, let's say white plays e4, black can play b5. And this is actually a better version of the Queen's Gambit accepted, because a6 was very useful, b5 comes in. If white wants to challenge this pawn chain, a4 could be played. But then after pawn to b4, black is quite happy, and a move like knight e2 can be met with c5. And there's been a number of games played in this line before. I'll go ahead here and just show opening reference. This is new for me, so let me try and switch scenes. There we go. And people can see that, okay, there's been 4 games played at like the highest levels, and black scores 75%. Okay, 3 wins and 1 draw. If we go back even further, I mean, black scores quite well from, I think, even this position after d takes c4. Yeah, all of the lines black is scoring better than white, which is usually a pretty good sign. So focusing back on the board, knight c3 is already not such a great move for white. Like it already gives black nice chances to get a better position in the opening. So that leaves white with perhaps a couple options. The most principled move here is to capture on d5, and that's the sound of the doorbell. I'm going to rewrite. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. My brother was at the door with no house key. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, c take d5 is the most principled move, attempting to render a6 just useless, given that after e take d5, black no longer has any immediate ideas of playing b5. The benefit that black has in this position, though, is that this bishop has a diagonal to develop to. And even though white gets a lead in development, let's say white plays knight c3, Then black can usually just develop with ease, actually starting with a move like c6, defending d5, preparing bishop d6. And black's development scheme usually involves bishop d6, knight e7, castling, and then waiting to develop this bishop. Sometimes the bishop goes to e6, queen goes to c7, and other knight goes to d7, and eventually f6. And there's been a number of games played from this position. Carlsen has actually played this a few times. Actually, just once. He beat Aronian with this in a crazy blitz game, which if people want to take a look at, I'll go ahead and let me switch scenes again just to illustrate. We can see the Carlsen game here. I'll go ahead and cite this. And one thing I didn't mention, but I mean, this goes without saying, is I will share this this Lee chess study in the video description, so people can analyze on their own and delve into a bunch of different lines a lot more deeply. And so it'll be completely public and accessible, and hopefully that will be good for everyone. So going back, white did not go into this. Instead, Nikolic played a simple move, pawn e3. And this essentially led into Carlsen's plan. And after pawn e3, a6 made some nice sense. Black played knight f6, knight c3. And Carlsen doesn't waste any time here. Carlsen captured on c4 immediately, which actually kind of surprised me, because usually in these structures, black should wait for white to develop the bishop before capturing on c4. So black might be inclined to play a move like bishop e7, waiting for bishop e2 and then capture on c4. So I'm not entirely sure the exact nuances why Carlsen didn't play a move like bishop e7. Maybe he didn't want white to play b3 and reinforce the pawn with the b pawn. So d takes c4, as we'll see, led to very natural play for black. After bishop takes c4, the next several moves are just very natural developing moves. Pawn b5, bishop e2, bishop to b7, castling, knight d7, bishop d2, and now bishop d6. And this is a nice square for the bishop. Many lines, the bishop ends up on e7, but in this case, bishop d6 is just a more active square. And from this point forward, black has two main pawn breaks to consider. Usually the main one is c5, but e5 as well is a very strong potential break. And as we'll see, Carlsen played that in a very timely manner. Rook c1 was played, castling. And then in this position, it was clear that, okay, Nikolic maybe wasn't entirely sure what to do. Like, white has essentially run out of like useful improving moves, or like clearly useful improving moves. And I think this was a point where white just didn't find the right plan, and then it was black who had all the active play. And because this was blitz, it was even more difficult for white to come up with a plan quickly. And there's actually a YouTube video of this game being played, like live over the board. And we can see, like, from this position, Carlsen has used like very little time, and Nikolic was already beginning to think. Nikolic went ahead here and played queen e1, which is not the most impressive move. The idea was to eventually play bishop a5, but it did not work out at all. Carlsen just improves, queen e7, knight b1, sad move, but unleashing the bishop to come to a5. Carlsen goes for e5, and this is just such a principled approach. Like, when your opponent's pieces are passive and like white is already retreating, then you should look to open up the center. And e5 is very nice because, okay, black's pieces are just so harmonious, and white's pieces are just, I mean, I feel bad calling them garbage, but that's essentially what they are. And when the center opens up, like, all the tactics are going to favor black. So bishop a5 was played, going after the c-pawn. Carlsen had no fear, and he just ignores the c-pawn being attacked. Takes on d4. And now white is faced with a difficult decision, because if e take d4, then white's just left with an isolated queen's pawn. And it's very nice positional play for black. What Nikolic played was knight take d4, but this was even worse. And from this position, if I'm not mistaken, black is already winning material by force. And this is actually a good moment, like for people who are really engaged with this, if you want to pause your video and find a forcing way for black to win material, there's a nice combination here. So the combination just involves a few forcing moves. The first one being a maiden one threat, queen e5. And the point is that h2 is a target, but also b2. And after white defends with g3, Carlsen just plays c5. And white's position is already falling apart. The knight has to move, and b2 will hang. And a counter-attacking move like f4 never works because of queen take e3. So the game ended really quickly. Like the game just lasted 6 or 7 more moves. After bishop f3, bishop take f3, knight take f3, free pawn on b2, pawn e4, rook e8. And like white has no compensation for the pawn. If anything, black is the one with more active play still. Like white's pieces are just not coordinating at all. Knight on b1 undeveloped, bishop on a5 staring into empty space. Queen on e1 blocks in the rook. Meanwhile, both e4 and a2 are not sufficiently defended. So what happened in the game was just very smooth for Carlsen. In the words of Maurice Ashley, queen take a2, pawn e5, one last trick. Didn't work at all. Queen d5 was very nice, making use of the pin. Now the pawn on e5 and the knight on f3 are attacked. Queen d1, queen take d1, and then bishop take e5. And black is just up 3 pawns. It's rare to see such a strong grandmaster. Nikolic, rated I think in the mid 2500s. I mean, he just went down incredibly easy to Carlsen. I mean, okay, it is Magnus Carlsen, it is Blitz, but still, in a Queen's Gambit opening, usually white is supposed to have a solid position from early on. And we can see that in this game, a6 was a nice way to not only get out of opening theory, but to just have like a very simple and easy structure to play. And I think it's a type of move that I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes more trendy in the coming years. I mean, at least at maybe not at the highest grandmaster level play, but at lower levels, I think it's a very reasonable way to treat the position. If we look at the other moves here, one of the main ideas is that if knight f6 is played so early, it allows bishop g5. So this is another idea for black to perhaps wait on committing the pieces and go for this early queenside play. One more thing I want to mention, which I don't think I even prepared, but I should point out that a move like c5 might look attractive for white, but this just walks into b6, and a move like b4 can be met with a5. And this is actually a very fundamental sequence. Like at the beginner level, I remember when I was first starting out chess, realizing that the c5 move walks into b6 and a5, and this is just a very strong positional approach for black to tear down white's queenside pawns. So no, I covered a lot of lines, but hopefully viewers found this useful and maybe can be inspired to play a bit more creatively like Carlsen. So I'll leave it at that. If anyone has any questions, leave a message below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.